Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, how can Houston turn this season around and get a dub up against the Denver Broncos? It won't come easy, but got some home field advantage and a little bit on a roll after that win over the 49ers. Can they bring that into the Week 9 stratosphere and get a win up against the Denver Broncos? Speaking of beating the Denver Broncos, we are in a sub-battle up against Denver this week. Our Broncos channel host, he's been talking a lot of crap, and we are nipping at their heels. So far this week, our channel has gotten 197 subscribers. The Broncos channel, 202 subscribers. If you want to help me beat the Broncos on and off the field, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're already subbed, send it to a friend. Send it to another Texans fans, and let's make sure we shut the Broncos host up this week, and let's beat them on the field. This is how we're going to do it. 5 keys to victory. And maybe the most obvious, maybe you're like, Jeremy, duh. Please, for the love of God, you got to protect C.J. Stroud. And I know it's a lot easier than what it sounds like, but the biggest matchup in Week 9, of course, will come inside the trenches. The Texans front 5 going up against this vaunted front 5 from the Denver Broncos. Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, and Jonathan Cooper. That will be a tough test for this Texans team. And, you know, the Texans offensive line played really well up against the 49ers, but the 49ers went ahead and added multiple guys because of how bad they were in Week 8 and the lack of pressure they were able to get on this Texans offense. Won't be the same this week. Joe Rolls put this out on X. The Broncos defense is generating a sack on 13.16% of their snaps. No other team in the NFL this season has exceeded 9.13%. I mean, the Broncos defense has been getting after it. If we think the Texans defense is on a roll so far, Denver, they are no snubs. Also, from the 33rd team, most sacks through 8-team games since 2005. The Broncos are tied with the 2013 Kansas City Chiefs for the most sacks through 8 games in an NFL regular season with 36. They have been getting after the quarterback. And C.J. Stroud seems like he's been hitting a rhythm. You know, he was making throws up against the 49ers that we haven't seen him make since his rookie year. He actually was looking like rookie year C.J. Stroud. We saw the glimpses of that in Week 8. I want to continue that. I want to see C.J. Stroud being able to dot up this Broncos defense, especially without key guys in their secondary. I need this offensive line to be able to protect C.J. Stroud, and I think that means more 6 offensive lineman personnel. They've been bringing in Blake Fisher at the tight end spot each and every single week. You know, more and more and more. We saw a ton of it up against San Francisco in Week 8, and I think we'll see a lot more Blake Fisher as the extra offensive lineman, them going the jumbo package heavy sets and running and doing play action off that, where you have 6 offensive linemen in to protect. I think that is the key for this Texans offensive line, especially with, you know, still some shakiness on the interior. Jake Andrews, Juice Scruggs, Laken Tomlinson, they've been switching out still at left guard. I think the Texans, they need to protect C.J. Stroud, and having Blake Fisher in at that 6th offensive lineman, you know, you spent the 2nd-round pick on him. If you're not going to start him at right tackle, might as well get some use out of Blake Fisher while you have him on this rookie deal. Let's put him in there at that tight end spot, get some extra blockers, and then maybe also run the ball a little bit with Woody Marks, with Nick Chubb behind 6 offensive linemen. Now, I'm not going to give you all the easy road. I want everybody in the chat right now, give me one key to victory besides the Texans offensive line. Can't say O-line. You can't say O-line. Give me one thing the Texans got to do besides protect C.J. Stroud, because I think if I asked you the biggest key to victory, every single person and their mom would say, you got to make sure they don't sack C.J. Stroud. Well, of course. Give me one other thing the Texans got to do if they want to win in Week 9. Let's go to my next key to victory. You got to take some deep shots. You got to, you know, last week, that C.J. Stroud to Jalen Noel deep bomb, I think that was the thing that clicked. C.J. Stroud, after that, he was seeing the field so much more clearly. He was dotting up that Niners secondary easily, just play after play after play. And it was after he completed one of those nice deep balls. And a little chat stats for you. The Broncos are tied for 27th in the NFL. You know how I've been talking about how good their defense has been this year. One thing they haven't done well is take the football away. Only 7 takeaways this season for this Broncos defense, tied for 27th. And What's not going to help that is the fact that they have their best cover corner out this week in Pat Surtain II. We broke it down on our show yesterday, but the Broncos CB1 will not be playing for Denver this week. He's actually going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with a pectoral injury. So what does that mean for this Broncos secondary? Well, you see Pat Surtain, he's their CB1. They're going to slide Riley Moss over to cornerback 2, which he's actually had a ton of penalties going against him, so might want to target him. Also, Jahdae Barron, the first-round pick out of Texas. He's been playing mostly the slot, but they've been inserting him all around this secondary. Abrams Drain has played decent for them, and Jaquan McMillan has also actually played decent for this Broncos secondary. So it's not going to be scrubs, but still not the level of Pat Surtain. So Nico Collins back practicing this week. He's expected to play. Same thing with Christian Kirk. As long as, he doesn't re-injure that hamstring, he's expected to play this week for this Texans team. You'll have a lot of weapons. You got to take those deep shots, and you got to take them while you can because, obviously, you got to be able to protect C.J. Stroud, have the extra offensive lineman. But if you have that protection, if it holds up, take those deep bombs and see if you can, either have a great play by Nico Collins or a Jalen Noel or Jaden Higgins downfield, or more than likely, you're going to draw a penalty. As I said, Riley Moss has had a ton of penalties against him this year. So if you can target him, especially if he's one-on-one against Nico Collins or Jaden Higgins, pick on him. See if you can get a penalty and get this ball moved down the field. Let's get to our next key to victory, and kind of goes along with what I was just saying with taking the deep shots. You got to get your playmakers in space, and I want to see the rookies show out because these rookies last week were on fire. Woody Marks, 111 all-purpose yards. He was fantastic. Jaden Higgins, he had his career high in receptions this past week, and Jalen Noel looked like an absolute playmaker for this Texans team. They need to get these rookies on track, and that was my biggest worry with Nico Collins and Christian Kirk coming back is that they're, go back to, we're not going to play Jalen Noel. We're not going to play Jaden Higgins. You still have to be able to integrate those guys, and up against this Broncos pass rush, we need some well-timed screens designed and called by Nick Caley this week. You got to make sure that you catch the Broncos off guard and get our guys in space and take advantage of their playmaking. Maybe a Woody Mark screen here and there. Jalen Noel, if you can design some better wide receiver screens, maybe some jet sweep action for him, get the ball in his hand in some space. I want to see these playmakers get some space and be able to do what they do best and make those plays up against this Broncos defense. Coming up in just a moment, I have a couple more keys to victory, but couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsor. I love them, Jack loves them, and I know you will too. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, gets a little chilly, but the feeling of being right, that never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Play Prize Picks to get action on football in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, celebrity, partner, or just someone whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new Feeds tab on Prize Picks. And speaking of new features on Prize Picks, I actually put one in my lineup this week. It's called Stacks. That means you can choose the same player with multiple different projections. So I'm going C.J. Stroud, passing yards and rush yards. Of course, I'm going the more on both those because I think the Texans are going to win this week. And then Texans defense, I think that's going to be a big key, which we'll get to in just a second. But Cortland Sutton, J.K. Dobbins, if we can keep them in check, the lessons on both those in receiving yards and rushing yards respectively, I think that'll spell for a Texans win. You can use my lineup or go ahead and make your own. Just do it with our friends over on Prize Picks. And especially important for this game, I was talking about Nico Collins, his injuries. Prize Picks, they also offer injury reboots. So if one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. No one else is doing that. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, my next key to victory, you got to get them off the field. And I know what you're saying, duh. But as you look at the numbers a little bit more closely, the Texans and Broncos have number 1 and number 3 in terms of defenses getting off the field on third down. The Broncos lead the league in 29.9% opposing teams are converting those third downs. The Texans, they're third in the NFL with 32.8% of the time defenses or opposing offenses are converting those third downs. So controlling the time of possession will be crucial. Which offense can stay on the field and which defense can force those 3 and outs? That'll be massive in this game. And we talk about, the quarterback, C.J. Stroud, Bo Nix, but the Broncos actually might have had one of the sneaky signings of the offseason and getting J.K. Dobbins. He's making less than $3 million this year, only has 120 carries, 630 yards on the year. The Texans got to shut him down. Now, they did it last week up against Christian McCaffrey, keeping him to his lowest rushing total since he played with the Carolina Panthers. Can they do it this week up against J.K. Dobbins and a much better offensive line with the Denver Broncos? All right, last key to victory here, got to get pressure with 4. If you're trying to, drop back in coverage, take away those options for Bo Nix, you got to make sure you're getting after him with only 4 rushers. And luckily, the Texans, they've done a great job at doing just that this year. Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, I still believe they are a top edge rush duo in the National Football League. Mario Edwards Jr., Sheldon Rankins, and the other guys on the interior. Danico Autry, Tommy Togai, Tim Settle Jr., they've been able to get after the quarterback a ton. And Bo Nix has had a up and down year. Can they rattle him? Can they make it where the second-year quarterback out of Oregon isn't comfortable? And one thing that happened this week, and I made a video before I went live today, and I want to see Will Anderson Jr. and what he responds to after the massive contract extension for Aiden Hutchinson. Go get that money, young fella. Will Anderson Jr., it's right there in front of you. You are, leading the league in pass rush win rate already this year. If you can put on a show for the rest of this season, no doubt the Texans should and probably will make you the highest paid edge rusher in the entire National Football League. Actually, little quick aside, Jack. I have a List 10 logo of the new top 10 paid edge rushers in the NFL. Will Anderson Jr. can find himself on this list, and it starts this week, because he is the next guy up in terms of edge rushers in the NFL. If he wants to make that Micah Parsons money, that Aiden Hutchinson money, it starts this week up against the Denver Broncos. Can he get to Bo Nix? Can he rack up those sacks and make the other team's offense live in havoc for every single minute of Week 9? If he can do that, the Texans, I think, have a good chance to win up against the Denver Broncos. That's all I have for you on this segment. Make sure you give me a follow at Jeremy Chugs on X. If you want to hit me up, my DMs are always open. And if you made it to the end of this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button for free Texans content all year long. And oh yeah, we're trying to beat the Broncos channel this week. So help me out. Send it to a friend. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And let's beat the Broncos on and off the field.